It began in the shadows of a narrow alley off Decatur Street, where the hum of the city drowned out a man's desperate gasp for air. Marcus, a billionaire whose life had always been defined by control and precision, staggered forward with one hand clutching his chest, the other fumbling through his coat for an inhaler that wasn't there. His vision blurred as strangers passed, some glanced, most didn't bother. A jogger swerved around him without a fraying pause. A couple veered away, and a man in a hoodie muttered, "Watch it, old man," before disappearing into the crowd. No one stopped. No one helped. Then came Maya. She was just a little girl, scavenging for bottles behind the food stalls, her worn coat too thin for the winter air. At first, she froze, her grandmother's warning, "Never get involved," echoing in her mind. But Marcus's wheezing, the desperate reach of his trembling hand, pushed her forward. She knelt beside him, searched his pockets, found nothing. Her heart pounded as she realized the truth. He needed an inhaler, and quickly. In her coin pouch lay their last $5, saved for milk that week. It wasn't enough, but she ran to Ruth's pharmacy anyway. The pharmacist's first reaction was cold, dismissive, until something in Maya's eyes made him hesitate. He handed her a generic inhaler, keeping the money. Minutes later, she was back in the alley, pressing it to Marcus's lips. His chest rose with a shaky breath, his eyes opening just enough to see her small face hovering above him. "Thank you," he rasped. But by the time the sirens arrived, Maya was gone, disappearing into the city, leaving only a faded butterfly sticker on the inhaler as proof she had been there. The memory of the alley lingered with Marcus long after the attack. Lying in the sterile calm of Mercy Hospital, he kept replaying the moment, the cold concrete, the weight in his chest, and then the small, trembling hands that refused to leave him when everyone else had turned away. That image clung to him more than the relief of breathing again. She was just a child, 6 or 7 at most, yet she had done what an entire crowd of adults hadn't. She had saved him, but she had vanished before he could speak more than 2 words of thanks. No name. No trace. Only the pink inhaler in his hand, marked with a faded butterfly sticker. Marcus turned it over in his fingers, feeling something strange, guilt, gratitude, and the sense that this moment wasn't meant to be left behind. "I want to find her," he told Jeremy, his assistant. Quietly. "No press. No cameras." Jeremy frowned. "We don't even have a name." "Then we start where it happened," Marcus said. "The alley. Ask questions. Someone must have seen her." The next morning, Marcus returned to the spot in daylight. The alley seemed smaller now, less threatening, but still forgotten. He followed the path toward Ruth's pharmacy, where the balding pharmacist confirmed the story. Yes, a little girl in a worn pink coat, desperate, holding $5 in her hand. No name, no address. Just urgency. She ran toward the church blocks after she left, the man said, pointing. Marcus walked that way, scanning the street for any sign of her. His gaze landed on the community church weathered bricks, a small food pantry inside. That was where he met Miss Lillian, a volunteer with kind eyes and a guarded demeanor. "You're the man she saved," she said slowly when he explained his visit. "But you should know. Most kids here don't want to be found. They've learned to stay invisible. I just want to thank her." "Make sure she's okay," Marcus replied. "No one will know but her." Miss Lillian hesitated, then nodded. "I'll ask around." No promises. Days passed with no sign. Marcus returned anyway, sometimes standing outside the church, coat collar turned up against the wind, waiting. One afternoon, Miss Lillian finally approached him. "She might come by today. But don't expect much, she's cautious." As the sun began to dip behind the buildings, Maya appeared across the street, half hidden behind parked cars. She froze when she saw him, her instinct to run battling with the pull of curiosity. Marcus didn't move fast. He stepped toward her slowly, like approaching a frightened bird. "You came," he said gently. "I was hoping I'd get to see you again." Maya's gaze dropped to the pavement. "I'm not here to make a scene," Marcus continued. "I just wanted to tell you. I'm alive. Because of you." "Are you mad?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus shook his head. "No, sweetheart. I'm grateful." She studied him for a moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out the butterfly coin pouch. "That was the last money we had." His smile faded into something more solemn. "Then I owe you more than thanks. I promise." You and your grandma won't have to worry like that again. But I won't do anything you don't want. She hesitated, weighing his words, then gave a small nod. Okay. That fragile agreement became their starting point. Over the next weeks, Marcus visited, without fanfare. He brought groceries, small books, puzzles. He never pushed, never pried. Instead, he sat with Maya at the little kitchen table while her grandmother dozed in her recliner. They spoke about her drawings, especially the butterflies she loved to sketch. This one's a moon sniffer, she told him one morning, pointing to a silvery winged butterfly. A moon sniffer? He repeated, amused. Yeah. They only come out when the moon is full and smell it for dreams. He laughed softly. I like that better than monarch. Trust grew in these small exchanges, quiet moments where neither expected anything but presence. Marcus learned about her world, the leaky apartment roof, the cold winters without enough heat, the walks to the church pantry for food. Maya learned that Marcus wasn't just a man in a suit. He listened. He remembered what she said. He showed up. Still, she kept her guard. When Marcus offered to help her with school, she asked, You're not. I'm going to take me away, are you? He shook his head. Not unless you ask me to. Bit by bit, the distance between them closed. The man who once lay gasping on the ground, and the little girl who gave up her last $5, now shared cocoa at the kitchen table, puzzle pieces scattered between them. And though Maya didn't say it out loud, each time Marcus knocked on their door and stepped inside, she felt something she hadn't in a long time safe. It was no longer just a thank you Marcus sought. It was a connection, built on the rare kind of trust that comes from a moment when one life hangs in the balance, and another chooses to hold it up. And as winter slowly gave way to spring, both of them began to realize that their chance meeting in that forgotten alley had been the start of something neither could walk away from. The first few visits had been cautious, like stepping onto an unfamiliar bridge and testing its strength. Marcus would arrive at Maya's apartment without fanfare, no polished suit, no chauffeur waiting at the curb. Instead, he came with a canvas bag slung over his shoulder, a soft smile, and something small tucked inside. Groceries, a puzzle, a children's book, or fresh fruit that still carried the scent of the market. Maya always lingered near the corner when he entered, arms folded, watching him carefully. She wasn't used to people showing up without wanting something in return. Her grandmother, though wary at first, began to let him sit at their wobbly kitchen table. He never made grand gestures. Instead, he asked simple questions. About her drawings, her favorite colors, the places she'd like to visit one day. It was the butterflies that truly opened the door between them. One morning, Marcus arrived with a small journal he'd found in a shop near the park. The pages were thick, cream-colored, perfect for sketching. Thought of you, he said, sliding it across the table. Maya hesitated before taking it, flipping through the blank pages like they were treasure. I draw butterflies, she murmured. I know, Marcus replied, nodding toward the faded sticker on her coin pouch. Tell me about them. So she did. She told him about the moon sniffer, a silvery butterfly that only came out under a page, full moon to smell it for dreams. She showed him her drawings of flame-winged travelers and midnight chasers. Her imagination transformed the small apartment into wide skies and wild gardens. Marcus listened with the same focus he gave corporate negotiations, but his smile here was different, softer, unguarded. Over time, his visits became part of their rhythm. He'd stop by in the mornings before heading to meetings, or in the evenings with a paper bag of pastries. Sometimes he'd bring fresh milk, eggs, and vegetables, making sure the fridge wasn't as bare as it had been when they first met. Quietly, he covered their rent for the next few months, paid the overdue utility bills, and arranged for her grandmother's oxygen machine to be serviced regularly. But Marcus didn't just provide, he participated. On cold days, he sat with Maya and worked on jigsaw puzzles, his large hands clumsily fitting the tiny pieces she guided him toward. On warmer afternoons, they would walk to the park, where she would point out real butterflies, fluttering between the flowers, giving each one a name as if she knew them personally. Gradually, Maya's wariness began to melt. She started to greet him at the door instead of waiting for him to step inside. She asked questions about his life, his travels, his work. One day, she surprised him with a question that made him pause mid-sip of tea. Do you have kids? He shook his head. Number. Why not? She asked, eyes searching his face. Life moved too fast for too long, he admitted. I kept saying someday. Then I blinked. And someday was gone. Maya thought about this, her brow furrowed. You must be lonely. Marcus looked at her, surprised by the bluntness, but then he nodded. I think I was, not anymore, though. The apartment began to change in small ways, too. A vase of fresh flowers appeared on the excavation windowsill one afternoon after Marcus had stopped by. A new blanket for her grandmother's recliner replaced the old, worn one. Maya's sketchbook filled quickly, page after page of butterflies with wings that told silent stories, some bright and whole, others tattered but still flying. One rainy day, Marcus arrived with an envelope. I've been thinking, he said, sliding it toward Maya. Inside were forms simple, not the intimidating kind filled with legal jargon. They were for a part-time school program that would allow her to keep helping her grandmother, while also learning and growing. It included access to art supplies, tutoring, and healthcare support for her family. What do I have to do? She asked cautiously. Just be Maya, he replied. And let yourself grow. She stared at the papers for a long time before nodding. I want to help Grandma. But I want to learn too. His smile was slow, relieved. Then we'll make that happen. That night, he stayed for supper, simple soup and cornbread. They laughed as her grandmother told stories about dancing on Bourbon Street, back when my knees weren't traitors. The peeling walls and broken heater didn't seem so heavy under the weight of their shared warmth. By the time Marcus left, the trust between them had deepened into something tangible. He wasn't a passing visitor anymore. He was a steady presence, someone who didn't just give, but stayed. And as Maya lay in bed that night, sketchbook open on her lap, she drew a butterfly with mismatched wings, one bright, one dim, like it had flown through something terrible and come out changed. Beneath it, she wrote one word in careful block letters. Second chance. She didn't know it yet, but that was exactly what they had given each other. The news hit like a sudden storm. One morning, Marcus arrived at the community center, looking more tired than Maya had ever seen him. His usually steady hands fidgeted with a folded sheet of paper, a legal summons. The allegations were heavy: financial misconduct, breach of fiduciary duty, claims tied to his former company. The same company he had walked away from months earlier. They're trying to drag me back into something I didn't do, he told Maya quietly, his voice low so the younger kids in the art room wouldn't hear. It's about old deals, decisions made by people under my name. If this goes to court, it'll get loud. Maya's stomach tightened. Loud meant reporters, questions, whispers in the community. She knew how quickly people could decide what they wanted to believe. Over the next weeks, the case gained momentum. News stations ran segments with dramatic headlines, painting Marcus as a reckless billionaire who had abandoned responsibility. Maya couldn't reconcile those words with the man who fixed their heater, brought her sketchbooks, and stayed through cold winter nights just to play puzzles at their table. When the trial date arrived, Maya insisted on going. Her grandmother asked twice if she was sure. He came back for me, Maya said simply. I need to be there for him. The courthouse loomed large, its stone walls cold under a gray sky. Inside, the air buzzed with tension. Lawyers shuffled papers, photographers hovered in the back. Marcus sat at the papers, defendant's table in a navy suit, clean-shaven but visibly tired. When he saw Maya in the gallery, his eyes softened, and he gave her a small nod. She nodded back, her hand brushing against the butterfly pin hidden inside her jacket. The prosecution started strong, their lead attorney's voice like a hammer. Negligence. Misuse of power. Willful ignorance of fraud. They painted Marcus as the architect of every bad decision his former company had made. To Maya, it sounded like they were talking about someone else entirely. Then came the defense, calm, deliberate. Marcus's lawyer spoke of his resignation, the steps he took to distance himself from the wrongdoing, and the quiet work he'd been doing since. Witnesses came forward, documents were presented. But then the lawyer did something unexpected. She called Maya to the stand. Her breath caught. She glanced at her grandmother, who whispered, "You don't have to." "I want to," Maya said. The walk to the witness box felt longer than it should have. Everything looked bigger from up there, the judge's bench. The rows of unfamiliar faces, the glaring lights. The clerk asked her to state her name. "Maya William," she said, voice small but clear. "How do you know Mr. Marcus Coleman?" the defense asked. Maya looked at Marcus. "He almost died," she began. "I found him in an alley. He couldn't breathe. People just walked by like he wasn't even there. But I stayed. I gave him the last dollar I had to buy him medicine. A ripple went through the courtroom. The judge tapped her gavel for silence. And after that, the lawyer prompted. He came back, Maya continued, her voice gaining strength. He didn't owe me anything. But he came back every day. Helped us when no one else did. Not because it would look good. Not for attention. Just because it was right. The prosecutor rose, adjusting his tie. Maya, you're very brave. But are you aware of the charges against Mr. Coleman? The claims of financial wrongdoing? I know people are trying to blame him for things he didn't do, she replied. I also know what it's like to be blamed just because of where you come from, or how you look, or because people don't want to believe someone like you can do the right thing. He tilted his head. And what makes you so certain he's telling the truth? Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out her sketchbook. She turned to a page and held it. Up a butterfly she'd drawn the day Marcus returned after a long absence. Because this is the man I know, she said firmly. Not perfect. Not powerful. Just someone who got a second chance and used it. The courtroom fell silent. When Maya stepped down, Marcus mouthed, "Thank you." She gave a small nod and returned to her seat, her heart pounding but strangely light. The rest of the trial moved in a blur, more witnesses, more arguments. Finally, the judge announced she would deliver a verdict within the week. Outside, sunlight broke through the drizzle. Marcus caught up with them on the courthouse steps. I didn't know they'd call you, he said softly. I wanted to speak, Maya replied. You helped me find my voice. He looked at her for a long moment before turning to her grandmother. Whatever happens, I'll never forget this. Her grandmother gave a rare smile. Just keep showing up, that's what matters. And as they walked away from the courthouse, Maya realized something important. She wasn't just the girl who had saved Marcus in an alley. She was the girl who had stood in front of a courtroom, spoken the truth, and been heard. In her heart, it felt like another set of wings had unfolded, stronger, steadier, ready for whatever came next. The idea began quietly, almost like a shared secret. A week after the courthouse hearing, Marcus and Maya were sitting at the kitchen table, a half-finished puzzle between them. Outside, the winter light was soft and pale, but inside, the air felt charged with something new. I've been thinking, Marcus said, sliding a small folder across the table. What if we built something together? A place for kids like you, families like yours. Somewhere safe. Somewhere that could give more than just one second chance. Maya tilted her head. Like a shelter? Not exactly, Marcus replied. More like a center. Education, art, skills for real life. A place that feels like it belongs to the neighborhood, not to me. But you'd help lead it. Her fingers rested on the folder. What would it be called? Marcus smiled faintly. That's up to you. She thought for a moment. The Second Chance Project, she said finally. And just like that, the name stuck. The first planning meeting took place in the old Sunday school room at the back of the church. The walls were faded yellow, the chalkboard covered in years of dust. Miss Lillian brought lemon cookies, Reverend Porter sat with a clipboard, and a small group of local teachers, volunteers, and parents filled the folding chairs. They weren't executives or politicians. They were people who had lived in the neighborhood long enough to know what it needed. We're not here to save anybody, Marcus began. We're here to stand beside the ones already fighting. Maya opened her sketchbook and held up a drawing, a butterfly with wings made of hands and roots. This is what I think the project should be, she said. Not charity, not pity. Just ground to grow from. They made lists. After-school tutoring, art programs, job prep workshops for teens, affordable groceries for single parents, mental health counseling. Marcus listened more than he spoke, jotting down details about city permits, building codes, and grant requirements. Maya sat beside him, adding colors and ideas to the vision as if she were sketching the future in real time. Within weeks, they found an empty storefront near the park. The space was rough, cracked tiles, flickering lights. But it had tall windows and strong bones. Maya walked through, slowly, imagining shelves of books, art tables, a reading nook. She turned to Marcus. Let's do it. Renovations became a community effort. Volunteers painted walls in bright colors, built bookshelves from donated wood, and turned a back room into a small kitchen. Kids helped Paint murals, scenes of butterflies bursting through cracked concrete, hands reaching for stars. Not everything was easy. A few skeptics whispered that it was a publicity stunt, that Maya was being used. But she stood her ground. One evening, she posted a drawing of a butterfly, with broken wings still in flight, captioned, "We're still here. Come see for yourself." The next day, more volunteers showed up than they had space for. By spring, the Second Chance project was ready to open. On the morning of the ribbon cutting, pastel-colored balloons bobbed in the breeze. Folding chairs lined the sidewalk, and the front mural painted by Maya and neighborhood kids read, "Where broken things bloom." Miss Lillian gave a short speech about community. Reverend Porter offered a prayer, and then they handed Maya the scissors. She hesitated, fingers trembling. "I'm not used to people watching me," she whispered to Marcus. "They've been watching," he said gently. "They just never had a reason to believe until now." With a deep breath, Maya cut the ribbon. Applause filled the street. Inside, the center buzzed with life. The main room held art tables covered in sketch pads and paint. A cozy corner with beanbags became the reading nook. The back kitchen hummed with volunteers preparing meals for families. Along the hallway, small rooms served as tutoring spaces, counseling offices, and quiet reflection areas. Maya led tours for parents, explaining how programs worked and handing out blank journals. To children, "You can draw or write anything you want," she told them. "This is your space." By evening, as the last visitors trickled out, Maya and Marcus stood in the quiet main room. The mural glowed under the warm light, and the air smelled faintly of fresh paint and cocoa. "You okay?" Marcus asked. Maya nodded, though her eyes shimmered. "It's a good tired." They locked up and stood on the steps, watching the street. "This isn't just a building," Marcus said. "It's a pulse. It's alive." Maya smiled. "And tomorrow, it starts breathing for real." That night, back in her room, she opened her sketchbook and drew a new butterfly, its wings. A collage of colors, shapes, and textures, each representing someone who had helped. Underneath, she wrote, "Together." The Second Chance project had begun, not as an idea on paper, but as a place that could hold the weight of hope and help it grow. The first few months after the Second Chance project opened felt like sunlight after a long winter. Kids poured in for tutoring, art classes, and quiet reading hours. Parents found a safe place to leave their children while they worked late shifts. Volunteers came every week, teaching everything from cooking to job interview skills. It was working better than anyone had dared hope. But good things have a way of drawing unwanted attention. It started as a whisper outside the market. Maya overheard two parents talking in low voices. "I heard the city might cut the funding extension." The reasons were vague sustainability concerns, possible misuse of influence phrases that sounded official but meant little. Within days, the rumors grew louder. Someone even suggested Marcus was using the center to rebuild his public image after the court case, a claim that stung Maya more than she expected. Then came the inspections. One morning, two city officials arrived unannounced, clipboards in hand. They cited a cracked tile in the hallway, an expired fire extinguisher, and a flickering light in the reading nook. None of it was dangerous, but enough small infractions could justify a temporary shutdown. Marcus stayed calm. "We'll fix it," he told the inspectors. Every last thing. And they did. Within 48 hours. Volunteers had repaired the tile, replaced the extinguisher, and installed a new light fixture. But the scrutiny didn't stop. A week later, a formal audit notice arrived in the mail. The city wanted to review every financial record since the center opened. Marcus spent long nights at his desk, receipts and spreadsheets spread out around him like a paper storm. Maya would find him there, rubbing his temples, eyes tired but determined. "You ever feel like they just want to shut us down?" she asked one evening. He looked up at her. "Some people don't like what they can't control. And when places like this work, when people who were supposed to stay invisible start being seen, it makes them nervous." Maya thought about that for a long time. The next day, she gathered the older kids in the mural room. "They think if they pull one thread, the whole thing will fall," she told them. "So, we're going to show them how strong we are." They spent the afternoon painting over the blank wall by the entrance. Butterflies with steel-edged wings, hands holding each other above flames, broken chains turning into rainbows. Every stroke of color was an act of defiance, a way of saying, "We're still here." When the inspectors returned, the walls were brighter than ever. But the real turning point came in a plain cardboard box. It arrived at the front desk one rainy afternoon, no return address. Inside were dozens of letters, some handwritten, some typed, some drawn in crayon. A teacher wrote, "One of my students hadn't spoken in a year. He did. Last week after Maya told him he mattered." A mother shared, "When I lost my job, this place gave me hope to keep going." Marcus read every letter. Then he took the box to the city council meeting where the center's funding was to be decided. Maya sat in the public gallery, her butterfly pin gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, heart pounding as Marcus stepped to the podium. "You can take away grants," he began. "You can delay permits. But what we've built here isn't held together by paperwork. It's built on lives changed, on second chances taken and given. If you shut us down, you're not closing a building. You're closing the door on everyone who's finally found a place where they matter." The room was silent. Then one council member stood. "I visited last week," she said. "No one knew who I was. I saw a girl comforting a boy who was too scared to speak. She told him, 'This place is yours too.' That kind of power doesn't come from a grant." When the vote came, it was unanimous. The Second Chance Project would remain open. Outside the council hall, people hugged, clapped, and cried. Marcus found Maya in the crowd. "We're not done," he told her. "I know," she replied. "But we just proved we're stronger than they think." That night, back at home, Maya opened her sketchbook and drew a new butterfly. Its wings were layered in colors like tempered steel, unyielding yet luminous. Beneath it, she wrote, "Unbreakable." The challenges hadn't disappeared. More inspections would come. More rumors might rise. But the center now had something more powerful than any permit or grant. Proof that when a community stood together, it could weather any storm. And for Maya, that meant the Second Chance Project wasn't just surviving, it was learning to soar. By the time summer warmed the neighborhood, the Second Chance Project had settled into a rhythm that felt almost like breathing. Mornings began with tutoring in the sunlit reading nook, afternoons buzzed with art workshops, and evenings often ended in the community garden, where the scent of basil and marigolds mingled in the air. What had started as an idea on paper was now alive. Its rooms filled with laughter, learning, and the hum of people who felt safe. For Maya, the center had become more than a place she helped build. It was a living, breathing proof of what could grow from one act of courage. She moved through its hallways, not just as a participant, but as a leader. Kids who had once come in shy and quiet now sought for her out, eager to show her their drawings, their finished homework, or simply to sit beside her. In the garden, one afternoon, Elijah, a teenager who had struggled to stay in school, found her in the art room. He was painting a butterfly in gold and forest green, each brushstroke deliberate. "I've been thinking," he said, without looking up. "I want to be a teacher, or maybe design places like this. Places where kids feel like they belong." Maya felt a lump rise in her throat. She'd heard him talk about frustration and anger before, but this was different. This was vision. "That's a beautiful dream," she told him, squeezing his shoulder gently. It wasn't just the kids. Parents began staying longer during drop-off and pickup, lingering in the hallways to chat, swapping recipes in the kitchen, or sharing advice about jobs and housing. Volunteers formed friendships that extended beyond the center's walls. Even Maya's grandmother, once cautious about letting strangers into their lives, had become a fixture, sharing lemonade and stories on warm evenings, her laughter ringing through the courtyard. Marcus noticed the change in Maya most of all. She no longer hung back during meetings. Instead, she stood up and shared ideas, a butterfly hour where kids could talk about what they wanted to let go of. A skills exchange where parents could teach each other sewing, cooking, or fixing things, a mural wall that anyone could contribute to. One Saturday morning, Marcus brought in a small brass key and handed it to her. "It's for the Gray Center," he said. "You've earned more than a title, Maya. You've earned trust." She turned the key in her hand, the metal cool against her skin. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Because you don't just have wings," he said. "You know how to help them grow on other people." From then on, she began mentoring the younger kids who showed leadership potential. She taught them how to organize art projects, how to welcome newcomers, and how to listen, without judgment. She shared her own story when it felt right, not to make herself the hero, but to show them that even small voices could make big changes. The center itself kept evolving. A partnership with the local high school brought in college prep courses and leadership programs. The garden began producing enough vegetables to supply the kitchen and send baskets home with families. A quiet lounge was added for parents needing a place to breathe. Maya's favorite place, though, remained the mural wall. Every month, new butterflies appeared, each painted by someone with a story to tell. Some wings were bright and whole. Others were patched with darker colors, evidence of storms weathered. One evening, she stood before it, with Marcus, as the sun dipped low. "Every one of these is a piece of someone's second chance," she said. He nodded. "And you helped give it to them." But Maya shook her head. We gave it to each other." The impact stretched beyond the neighborhood. Word of the Second Chance project spread to nearby communities, inspiring similar initiatives. Visitors came to observe programs, taking notes and asking questions. Some returned weeks later with stories of how they'd started gardens, art rooms, or tutoring sessions back home. Despite the growing attention, the center remained grounded in its original purpose: to be a safe place where people learned, created, and cared for one another. It wasn't perfect. There were still bills to pay, schedules to juggle, and occasional disagreements, but it had a heartbeat now, steady and strong. One crisp autumn evening, as lanterns glowed in the garden and children chased each other between the sunflowers, Maya stood on the steps and watched it all. She thought about the night in the alley, the $5 she had clutched in her hand, the stranger who had been fighting for breath. She thought about the girl she had been scared, invisible, certain that no one was coming to help. Now, she saw kids looking at her the way she had once looked at Marcus. Like someone who could be counted on to show up. And that, she realized, was the real gift of the Second Chance project, not the programs or the building, but the way it gave people the courage to believe in each other again. As the night wound down, Maya locked the center's front door, the brass key warm from her hand. She looked back at the mural, at the wings that seemed ready to lift right off the wall. Tomorrow they would open the doors again, and more people would come. More stories would unfold. More wings would grow. And she would be there, not just to witness it, but to help them take flight. Marcus and Maya's journey began with a single act of compassion in a quiet alley and grew into a movement that reshaped an entire community. Through moments of hardship, suspicion, and trial, they proved that change isn't born from wealth or status, it's built from empathy, persistence, and an unwavering belief in people's worth. The Second Chance project became more than a building. It became a living example of what happens when we refuse to give up on each other. From a frightened little girl with $5 to a young leader who gave others wings. Maya's story is a reminder that the smallest act of kindness can set off ripples strong enough to alter lives. And Marcus, once a stranger in need, became a champion for those who had long been overlooked. Together, they showed that trust and compassion are not just ideals, they are forces that can rebuild families, heal wounds, and inspire generations. In a world quick to turn away, choosing to see and value someone can be the most radical, life-changing act you ever commit. It's proof that hope is contagious. And when shared, it can grow into something unstoppable. If this story touched you, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep bringing you stories that inspire hope, courage, and change.